Welcome back to Real World Retirement. I am your host, Alex Pushman, senior advisor here with Foguth Financial Group. Hey, we've been having an absolute blast doing these episodes, and everybody's in for a real treat today. We're going to be talking about some subjects that aren't necessarily a lot of fun, but I got one of the best. Caleb Marsh, he's one of our senior advisors. Great guy. Caleb, thank you for coming.
Glad to be here.
We are going to have an episode today that I think is going to land with a lot of families. It's going to get you thinking. That's the whole goal of this stuff, right? Get folks thinking. And it's estate planning in retirement. Estate planning in retirement, right? What does that look like? What are the things you need to avoid? A couple of the main points that we're going to be talking about is avoid probate at all costs.
Huge.
And Caleb's got some really good nuggets on that one. The second one is going to be, I don't want to say more important, but can be, is have the right team around you. Right. Caleb's got a lot of great information. So if you're somebody who's going to be listening to this, or even with me giving you those main points right out of the gate, you're like, wait a minute, I need to know more about that. Engage with us. Reach out to us. Send us a message, right? If you have a question, wait a minute, what the heck is he talking about? I've never heard of that. Reach out to us. That is our job. Our whole goal by doing this podcast is education. And again, bringing a lot of these complicated, boring subjects and bringing them to life through client stories and our personal experiences, because we do this all day, every day. So, Caleb, if you don't mind, I'm excited about today. And again, thanks for coming, man. What's your story? You know, what landed you in the financial advisor seat?
You know, I've been doing this for several years, and I've been around the business for a while. But what it really was for me was I married my wife about 6 years ago. And at that point in time, I got to know her family. And this is a common story we hear all the time.
Right.
Her grandmother had retired, and her grandmother was working with, I won't mention the name, but a firm we are all familiar with.
Yep.
And she had a decent amount of money, but wasn't enough for them to really put her interests at heart.
Okay.
COVID happened. Her portfolio took a big hit. She had nobody to call and answer the phone. She panicked and pulled out. Right? We all know what happened. The next 6 months, the market came roaring back. She didn't participate in that. And because of that, she's lived a lower standard of life since then.
Right.
And so it really just, to me, was, you know, you need personal advice.
Yeah.
You need an advisor that's really going to get to know you.
Right.
It's going to be there for you and answer the phone when you call.
Absolutely.
And be able to guide you through these things instead of just throwing you in a random model, calling you once a year to check in. And it's huge. You know, so I saw that firsthand through what happened to her grandmother, and it really impacted me. I said, I'm not going to let that happen to other people.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, you know, that's my story too, right? It's like, you know, my grandfather, right? On one side and my grandma on the other side of the family. And it takes, and it's kind of like our clients, right? Like they don't even think they need a trust until they go through with their parents. And it's when those things happen close to you is when it's like, okay, wait a minute, I don't want that, you know? So that makes sense.
It's huge. And you know, we meet with families all day.
Yes.
Right. And it's always my first question, kind of toward 3/4 in, do you have a will or a trust? And the ones that get me are when they say, we don't have either.
Right.
I kind of, do you understand what that means?
Right.
Okay?
Right.
You know, it's all about having people that put your best interest at heart.
Yes.
And I can tell you this, most of the time, whatever state you're in, they're not going to put your best interest at heart.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's probably true.
Right.
So on that, it's a good segue. Talk to me about kind of this first topic, you know, where we're talking about avoid probate at all costs.
Yes.
Give me some of that. Give me some juice.
You know, it's a
on that.
word that we've all heard,
Yeah.
but maybe we're all not really familiar with. So a lot of people think that if you have a will or you have some other things in place, that all good. The word probate actually means determining the will.
Okay.
So a will is really just a suggestion. It's a document that everyone should have in place. I even tell people, if you have nothing, go home, write on a napkin or a piece of paper, sign it and put it in a drawer because it's absolutely better than nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's like low hanging fruit. The next best step would be to have a trust. And this is something a lot of people don't really know, but having a trust fully avoids probate.
Okay.
And another big thing about a trust is it gives you ultimate control when you're gone.
Right.
We all like to control things when we're living.
Right.
We all like to have our ducks in a row. Imagine if you could control things from the grave.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And again, like you alluded to, this is not fun stuff to talk about.
No, it's not. It's not.
You have to talk about your children. You have to talk about their relationships. You have to talk about their marriages, their kids, all these things. and it can get difficult.
Yeah.
But having a document like a trust in place really avoids a lot of infighting. Now, I know you got stories in your family. Okay?
Right.
It's happened on my family and my wife's family. When money gets involved, people get weird.
Yes.
Okay. People
Brings
will
the
do
worst out.
It does. People will do crazy things. And also, you know, what happened to my dad? My dad was the executor of his mom's will. Okay. It's a full-time job. And you kind of have to take that on, and you're the one responsible for making decisions. He had 2 sisters. It really didn't work out well. One sister sued. The whole thing with the court, you know where all the money went? The lawyers.
Yeah.
Okay, they ate it up.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we want to avoid.
Right.
Probate is a very, very, very expensive process. In the state of Michigan, probate is a minimum of 6 months. You have to hire a lawyer. You have to work with the court. You have to go through this monogamous process, and it's absolutely terrible. And it's funny, in my seminars, when I start to talk about this, you can just see people out there shaking their head because they've been through it.
They've been through it.
And I've also met people on the other side. They go, you know, my dad had a trust. It was so easy. We didn't have to do anything. The assets were available immediately. There was no fighting over things. It just makes it so much simpler. And here's the biggest opportunity that people don't realize, and this is actually going to be part of the second thing we talk about.
Okay.
When I first started studying estate planning, you just think, oh, you can go to a lawyer, right? These are legal documents. Lawyers have to write these up. Most lawyers are going to have my best interest at heart.
Right.
Well, what happens when you go into a law firm and you ask them a simple question, entrusting them with your estate planning?
Right. Right.
Do I need a will? Do I need a trust? If they're not specialized in estate planning, here's what you're going to hear. Alex, you just need a will. Pay me a couple $100. I don't need a couple thousand. Then I'm going to file the will here in my office. Tell your family just to come back when something happens and I'll take care of them.
Got it.
That's when they make all their money. They get to charge you by the hour in probate for 6 months. Okay? Compared to a trust, which is a couple $1,000s, you avoid probate and the lawyers completely.
Right. And if you don't know the game, you can't play the rules.
That's exactly right. And understanding that game and understanding your options and what to look for is exactly how you play.
Well, and you know, one of the things I always talk with my clients, and so, you know, one of the things, basically what you're saying is, listen, number one, if you're gonna have a will, make sure you understand that relationship with attorneys. Make sure you understand the whole scope of the situation, because you might just be getting, you know, the first grain of bread, right, to lead to a long trail of cash if you get with somebody who doesn't have a moral compass at the same capacity I'm sure people would hope they would have, right? And the ethical piece is a big piece. I talk to clients all the time about this. It's like, I'm not going to say never. I'm not going to say that. But oftentimes I tell people, I'm like, listen, when you have executors or you're working on your trust, it's not always the best opportunity to have your attorney be that person. Because, and again, I'm not saying all of them, but I got dozens and dozens of these stories where somebody passes away, they made the attorney the executor, right? And then now everything has to go through that attorney, and it takes like 1-2 years. And guess what? They're hitting their fees the whole time. And listen, there's good and bad of everything, right? But I've heard that story from clients' mouths to my ears, and I've had to get involved in stuff like that. I've had to get other attorneys involved, you know? So you see all these great stories, but there's a lot of bad stories. And so it's a very important topic. So, you know, what I would say is, if you're out there listening and you've gone through this, or you've seen somebody go through it and you don't have a plan, that's the type of situation. I want you reaching out, asking. There's not such thing as a bad question. I always say that. I'm a broken record. Reach out, engage with us, subscribe, send us a message, send us an email. Caleb is one of the best on this topic. He's available to talk to you, answer questions. It could be a simple email, right? One simple question could answer a lot of problems for you. So when we get kind of back to that story, so summarizing that, it's like saying, hey, listen, you've done this a long time. You've dealt with a lot of situations pertaining to the probate and the wills. And your whole point is like, listen, at all costs, you might have to spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 to avoid thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of cost in the long run. Avoid probate at all costs.
Yeah, it's huge, you know, and sometimes it hurts to write that check.
Yeah.
But I promise you, writing that check now, getting all of this stuff in place, you will save thousands down the road, and your family will thank you.
Right.
They will honestly, every single client that I've talked to that has a trust, they go, God bless my parents. God bless the people that took the time to put this in place. My brothers and sisters are so thankful. And, to your point, every single time this topic comes up, us dealing with this every day, and I've met thousands of estate attorneys. Yeah. I'd say, look, let me help you. If you have someone, I had a client, they got referred someone from their church. I said, let me vet him. I vetted him, great guy. Yeah. I said, I'll go with you.
Right.
I went with him. I sat there because I know what to listen for. I know what they're going to say. I know what a good process looks like.
Right.
And when that happens, I'm able to say, all right, let's meet in private. He's your guy.
Yeah.
I give you the blessing.
Right.
I got the BS meter. Yeah. He passed with flying colors.
Right.
Do business. Because we don't make any money off of this, right? This is a value add for us.
Right.
We put people's best interests at heart.
Right.
And I always say, I'll get on the phone. I'll do the research. Let me help you because I know what to look for.
Right.
And just having the right team in place.
Absolutely.
And people who are looking after you and who don't have conflicts of interest is a big deal.
Right. So first one, avoid probate at all costs. And then you just kind of teed me up there with saying it. Having the right team in place, kind of the second main topic we want to talk about. I have my whole spin on this, but when we talk about having the right team in place, what does that mean to you? What's some advice, some guidance, some best practices that you can kind of throw out to the listeners to make sure they're going down the right path when we talk about this?
When I first started out in the business, we always think that investment management is the big, and it's important.
Right.
But when you look at a true financial plan, there's more to it than that.
Right.
There's taxes.
Right.
There's estate planning. Sometimes there's even a lot of other aspects of real estate agents can be a big part, especially in retirement. Maybe you're downsizing. And so I know for me, I'm in Troy, a little bit more city center to Detroit. But you build these professionals around you. And when you meet someone, there's so many different facets that they don't understand that need to go into it.
Right.
And so what we do, and I know you've got a Rolodex of people that you lean on too,
Absolutely.
is being able to say, this is a great CPA to go to. This is a great estate attorney to go to, or vice versa. I meet with people and they go, hey, Caleb, you're my guy for financial advising. You're the one for the investment management piece. You introduced me to the estate planner. I have my CPA that you called and now you guys have a relationship with, and you've built this team of people who are looking after their best interests. So when the tax return comes in, when someone unfortunately passes away, or you have to update or amend a trust, or there's an inheritance, everything has to be aligned.
Right.
And it's so important if every single professional on that team is communicating and they're aligned with looking after the client's best interest.
And I love that because, this is a subject that hasn't come up on the podcast, which I always joke around, I'm looking at the main bullets and okay, we're putting we're making sure there's value in this, right? When we do this, we enjoy doing it, but we want to make sure it's valuable to you, the listener. And one of the things for me, I always talk about the personal CFO, right? And that's kind of got, I don't want to say popular, but I've heard it before. How I look at it, it's like when I look at my clients, and this is exactly what we're talking about, right? Is there's the client and they're the CEO of their organization. They've saved their whole lives. They've earned their Social Security benefits. And now they're in touch with all these different departments and professionals building your team. You have your insurance professionals. You have your CPAs, you have your attorneys, you have your Medicare specialist, right? You could go down the line and be like auto insurance. I can go deep into the rabbit hole.
A lot of professionals out
there. Real estate,
yeah.
lenders, and so it gets overwhelming because you're like, and where do most of these people come from? Referrals, right? You get your neighbor, your brother, your sister refer you somebody. And one of the things I always talk about, and again, I'm glad you brought this up. I think it's a phenomenal subject. Is it's never our job to tell somebody yes or no. It's our job to make sure they're playing the game, they understand the rules, and they're educated on the subjects. So when we get into these stories and this topic, what I would say is, to your point, I asked for the contact information of the CPA. I asked for the contact information of the attorney. I tell my client, I'm like, listen, if you want to be on the call, I love that. But most of them don't really want to sit on a call with me and the CPA and talk taxes for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we can do the work and then bring them the plan.
Yep.
Right. So I know you brought a really good story on this subject. You had a client that you worked with pertaining to, the kind of the build your team subject. Talk to me a little bit about this client and where this subject really popped up for you.
No, so great guy. Right. I met him at one of my educational events, and we went through a series of meetings. And I'll say this: most people think that they have everything buttoned up.
Yeah.
You know, they're well into their 60s. They've been very successful, and from the outlook, they do look like they have everything buttoned up.
Right.
And this is where understanding all the different pieces and facets and how they fit in give us a leg up as true. You know, holistic is the word that gets thrown around a lot, right? But it's true.
Yeah.
So I was able to kind of look at him, and again, my question: do you have a will? Do you have a trust? He said no. Okay, now again, go home, write it on a paper, right? That's huge. Put it in a drawer, at least you have something. But when we started digging into it, he had a couple legacy assets for his family. And I asked him, I said, are you ever going to sell this? He said, no. This will go to my kids. This will go to my grandkids. And when you're able to sit down, and I have a great attorney that I work with, we sat down with him, we worked through the whole plan, and he was able to structure it in a way. Number one, too, a lot of people focus on making money. And we know this is a saying in our industry. You're only as good as how much money you can keep.
Yep.
So this guy was open to a lot of liabilities. He had no protection. And if you own several different things and you don't have protection, it could wipe you out.
Right.
Right. And we're always looking for those black swan events, and we protect against risks. So having a good estate plan and being able to have everything organized and protected is also very big.
So what type of, when you say these legacy assets, just to kind of get the wheels turning for some folks out there who might not know, me and you, we could throw some analogies around and be terming people to death. What would be some legacy assets that come to mind?
Well, for this family, it was actually a hotel on Mackinac Island.
No kidding.
Yeah. They owned a couple other real estate pieces of property. And when we sat down and looked at it, and we reworked it all. At the end of the day, when we got done, the estate attorney looked at him and he said, you just saved your family hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Because if he had died, God forbid, right? And most husband and wives, they travel together.
Right.
They fly together, they drive together, and nobody wants to think that these things are going to happen to you. But if that plane goes down or you get in a car crash, the whole state's taken over. They call it intestate, right? The state steps in, they take control of all of your assets. You got to hire the lawyer.
Right.
You got to pay him for 6 months. And when you have assets like a hotel, it's going to be longer than
I can only imagine what that dollar figure is.
Exactly.
Especially on Mackinac.
Right.
Baby.
So this gentleman paid $3,000 for a full estate plan that was buttoned up. And again, if him and his wife, God forbid, something happened, they saved the family hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right. And I know me and you were talking about it earlier today, though, but you get these stories where you have these higher net worth families. Right. These are higher net worth families. And it's just a different set of rules for those folks. Everybody always wants to talk to your point about the investments. It's flashy, right?
Yep.
Hey, we did this on growth, and hey, I got my Tesla, my Amazon, or whatever it is, right? Like the holdings is the fun part. But what I know you're specifically talking about, and obviously I've been a part of these type of situations where the not so sexy and the not so fun conversations can actually be just as meaningful. When it comes to the taxes, when it comes to not the headache, because to your point, you said it earlier, unfortunately, money can bring the worst out of people, and the more you can do to control your environment and for your loved ones, it's just, there's such a wave of value that comes
It's
in.
just huge, and my mom talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
I have a brother and a sister. She always talks about when I'm gone, all I want is for you three to stay close.
Right.
Again, I've seen it. It doesn't matter the amount of money.
Yeah.
It could be 50 grand. It could be 10 million.
Right.
It really doesn't matter.
Right.
When one person feels slighted, and when there's a will, it opens up the opportunity for someone to throw a wrench in the whole process.
Probate. Right.
When there's a trust, it just gets rid of that.
Yeah.
And no one can say anything. No opinions come into play. No lawyers get involved.
Right.
They go, you know what? This is what mom and dad wanted, and we're going to abide by their wishes. This is actually a really cool story that happened the other day. So I'm working with a couple right now. The lady's from Moldova, right near Ukraine.
Right.
A lovely couple. And we were with the estate planner going over their plan. And she started laughing. She goes, he said, end of life. What's your wishes? She said, well, my wishes are that I'm cremated. I go back to my home country and they sprinkle my ashes in my village. But my kids will never do it. He goes, they will now. And he put it in the trust, and you should have seen the look on her face.
Right.
She was so happy that this was going to be somewhere documented, that it was her wish that when she was gone and she had no control or no say over anything, that this was still going to be there for her children to be able to look at and go, this is what mom wanted.
Right.
And a lot of times those things get lost.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. And that's powerful. It's like those little things, we always, kind of talk about it because we live in this world and, people throw out some cheesy stuff, but the whole peace and purpose concept is like, that's a perfect example of it. Right. Number one, you take that first example. Gentleman thinks he's got everything tight. You identify an opportunity that actually isn't even in your court. You're not an attorney. You've never passed the bar. You just have had experience with other families. You can say, hey, I'm going to encourage you to go talk to, here's a couple ideas of people who I trust and I've worked with to make sure you're buttoned up because I think you have an opportunity in this space, right? You're not writing the trust.
No.
You have nothing to do with it.
And most
you
of
just encourage them to go talk to them.
Right. And most of it's a conversation. I start to sit here and think about where people hug me.
Yeah.
And they almost start to cry.
Right.
I had another family, they owned a condo up at Grand Traverse. They had 2 kids and they really didn't know what to do with it because here was the situation. If they sell it, the one daughter gets mad because her and her husband like to go up there.
Right.
If they keep it, the son gets mad because he wants to sell it.
Right.
So they did a trust. They put the condo in the trust and they made it really easy. When we die, it gets sold. You split the profits.
Bam.
No argument. Nobody loses or wins. It makes it really easy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like even in my own family, my parents are my neighbors. Okay. So me and my 3 sisters, my parents are my neighbors. And I said, listen, guys, my parents were teachers. They don't have millions of dollars, right? But I said to them, listen, when you guys pass, obviously the house is right next door. Give all the investments to the girls. I just want the house because I don't want to get into conflict with my sisters over them forcing me to sell this because they want a payday, right? And now, again, the investments are worth more than the house, so nobody should be beating me up on it. But it's the only reason I think about that is because I've seen it happen to other people. You've seen it, I've seen it, and it's never a fun conversation. So long story short, having the right team, right? Is there any other kind of, nuggets you would add to this? Because again, I know there's folks out there listening. They're saying, that's me. I've seen it happen with my parents. I've seen it happen with my friend or my colleague. Again, reach out because you just got to educate yourself. And again, engaging with us, the comments, the following of our podcast. We hope you're enjoying this because this is the stuff. It can make a big deal. It can make a big difference in people's lives. Any other nuggets, though, that you can think that would be a good piece to add?
It can be everything. And I'll just say, and this is the big thing when I talk to families, especially, we deal with people who are in and nearing retirement. Right. Peace of mind is huge. It was actually the same lady. She got killed. I laid in bed every night for 10 years and thought about these things. If my husband and I passed, the kids are going to fight. What's going to happen? And when you do this stuff, it's the ultimate peace of mind because that the state can't do anything, that other people can't do anything, that your final wishes and everything is absolutely laid out the way that you want it to.
Right.
And having that peace of mind and having a plan in place like we always talk about is the ultimate.
Right. Yeah. And so those key takeaways, number one, whether you're somebody who's got $20,000 to your name or you're worth $20 million, avoid probate. Have a will at a minimum.
Yes, have a will.
But a trust is even better.
A trust even better. When we run through it, number one is having nothing. That's the worst. Like I said, draw it on a napkin or a piece of paper, sign it, stick it in a drawer. That's the low-hanging fruit. Okay, at least that gives the state something to go off of.
Right.
Because that's all they're looking for is a document that says what did Alex wish to happen.
Right.
The ultimate. And this is where really, working with a financial advisor is someone who has your best interests at heart to vet a good professional, know if they're truly looking out for you and getting a trust in place. And now, too, there's a lot of resources online.
Right.
We can go get a trust for a little bit lower of a cost. And,
Right.
and the number one type of trust, too, that I would say is a revocable living. Right. If you want to talk about an irrevocable or something more complex, come see us.
Right. Yeah,
that's a bigger conversation.
Yes.
But the revocable living is what we're talking about.
Right.
And also I will throw out a couple other nuggets. If you've got any type of disability in the family or there are thousands of different types of trusts.
Yes.
And just know they're completely customizable. And if you feel like you have a unique family situation, it is definitely a conversation that needs to be had,
right,
because there's probably a perfect type of trust for you.
Right. And I think that ties right into your second story about the client, higher net worth, thought everything was buttoned up, comes and talks to you. You gently and politely poke a couple holes, say, hey, I think there's some opportunity in this space, and get them with the right team. And not out of your mouth, out of the attorney and the CPA's mouth. This is going to save your family hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's the type of win that we live for.
It is,
right?
And it was so funny, this guy too. And, we meet with all different types of people. Yeah. And when we first sat down, we were going through it all. And he basically said, Caleb, I really don't think there's much you can do for me. Right. And I said, great. I'm here to just look it over. We always say we give thousands of second opinions. No big deal.
It's not.
And at the end of the meeting, like you said, I gently said, well, I think A, B, and C could be buttoned up, and here's what I think. And he was very open to it.
Yep.
He said, I've never heard anyone talk about these things the way you're talking about them.
Right.
Let's continue to explore it. We went and met with the state attorney I work with. After a 2.5-hour meeting, we left. The guy was hugging me, saying, I can't believe how powerful this is.
Yes.
I can't believe I've spent 60-something plus years on this earth and didn't know about these things. And this was a smart guy.
Right.
I mean, this guy was super successful, super smart. Like I said, 98% of his stuff was buttoned up, but it was this one area that we were able to just get him over the hump. And you don't know what you don't know.
And
right?
It's confusing. A lot of people, we always talk about it, it's like you don't want to have these really tough conversations all the time. And people neglect them.
They do. They neglect them. And the guy I work with, he always says this too. There's normally a life event that gets people to do this stuff.
100%.
Your parents pass, you go through it. Unfortunately, it's something like that gets us to come to the table and start to have these conversations. And I'll always encourage people, have them soon. Sit down with your children, sit down with your closest loved ones and have a plan. And another really big part of an estate plan that we haven't touched on is having a power of attorney and a medical directive. And the big point is just having people that love you and that you trust, who are going to put your best interest at heart. And I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about stories.
Right.
But when something happens to you and you don't know when it's going to happen, if you don't have these things in place, someone else that doesn't have your best interest at heart could possibly step in. And that's the last thing you want.
Amen.
So just getting this stuff taken care of, knowing that you have people that you love and trust that are there looking out for you, that they've got the ability to step in. It's funny, there's a guy I'm actually working with right now. He's going through it with his parents. And he told me that if his dad had not done all this stuff, he shows up to the hospital every week with a binder and says, here's my power of attorney.
Yep.
Here's all this. You're not going to do this to my dad. I'm stepping in. You will listen to me because I love my dad. And if his dad had not gone to the nth degree to get those documents in place, he would have had a different experience.
Oh, absolutely. Like I know even in my family, like obviously I do this for a living. So I handle the financial side of my parents' trust. But me and my sister, my basically the closest I have to me in age, me and my next sister, we both share the medical responsibility. So my parents' trust, we have to agree on it. And to your point, we go down layers and layers and layers. But if you're sitting out there and you're like, wait, this is new. What's the difference between a revocable and an irrevocable trust? What are we talking about with this probate for 6 months? What type of CPA or attorney should I be talking to? These are the things we want you to reach out, engage with us, send us the comments. Listen, Caleb will personally walk you through this stuff
gladly, and anytime. And
you can tell he's a passionate guy about this subject, and that's why I was excited to talk to you about this, just because absolute wealth of information. Anything else that you can think of? This has been a great conversation. I'm positive there's folks, again, kind of that average Joe person, right, who maybe doesn't have millions of dollars, what they can do, but also that family who's maybe got a more complicated high net worth situation. I think we're landing the plane and helping people understand there's options for everybody.
There are, and if you are higher net worth, you got to have a trust.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's a no-brainer.
Right.
I think it really starts to get a gray area when you don't have so many assets and you really start to think I don't need it.
Yeah, you don't need it.
But that's where too. I mean, trusts were created for wealthy people. Over the years, though, that process has come down. I'm telling you this right now. If you don't think you need a trust, you're probably wrong.
Right.
Having a will open you up to so many legal costs and so many legal complications that it's crazy.
Right.
We could spend all day just talking about that.
Right.
So I would just really encourage you, if you don't think you need it or you haven't sat down with your family to talk about these things, now's the time.
Right.
Don't wait.
Absolutely.
This is something that's super important. And when you have it in place, it's the ultimate peace of mind.
Right. And I appreciate it. And so, number one, Caleb, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I know there's going to be a lot of folks who are going to enjoy this. It's not the funnest conversation.
No.
It's complicated. Anytime you got to deal with attorneys, financial advisors, CPAs, are they good? Are they bad? Do they have a moral compass? Do they not? So I think it's really relevant. So thank you for joining me today.
No, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Great information. Number one, thank you to all you listeners out there. I hope you're really enjoying this. If this is your first episode that you're listening and you enjoyed it, you learned something new, it got you thinking, please make sure you subscribe and follow us. We got tons more down the pipeline. You can go back in time and get some of the other good ones, but hopefully you enjoyed this today. So thank you for joining us on Real World Retirement. I am your host, Alex Pushman. And again, Caleb Marsh, thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
Absolute pleasure.
Yep.
Awesome. We'll see you next time, guys.
Advisory services provided by Foguth Wealth Management LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. For additional information, visit advisorinfo.sec.gov and search 327434.